on. Good to go. I think should be good to go. Okay. So here we are, and we already have some questions, and we already have some retracted messages. That's a great start. So hello, everybody. To start, of course, it is 11:30 in the morning here, my time, which is Los Angeles time. And this is when we always start the live stream every week on Thursday. So if you're new here and you want to tune into a future live stream, this is the time. Okay, so I hope everybody's doing well. We already have some things here from Full Moon Dweller. Hi, how's it going? I have a couple questions. Okay, going pretty good. Hope you are also doing well. One, how do you pronounce M plus P as in symptomatic infection and put a crimp in? Okay. So for the first question, M plus P. Well, you do an M plus P. Symptomatic. Now, of course, I'm sure the question is coming because maybe you're not hearing the P. And that's because we can say sympta. Usually when there's an M and a P, well, it depends. It really depends on the combination and potentially even on the stress. Like if we say simple, for example, it's actually simple. So the P is at the start of that next syllable, and we're going to pronounce it. But if the MP is at the end of a syllable, or it's in a cluster like this where there's like an MP and a T, see the T is sort of at the start of the next syllable. Symptom. So that P, and there might be exceptions to this, but generally, off the top of my head, the P doesn't actually have to be pronounced. If you are speaking more slowly, more clearly, or maybe you're emphasizing the word, then it's more likely that we would push out that P because that would be the fully enunciated way. Symptomatic, sympta. So there's like a pta. But because M and P share the same position, and they're both at the end of the syllable there, the P actually isn't required. Sympta. Yeah. So you can ignore the P there. When put a, let's see, what was the other one? Okay, so crimp in. So here, this is a good example that is actually an important point to follow up from what I was just talking about. In this case, so when we say crimp, okay, at the end of the word, we do want to end in that P. It's not crim, okay? So with symptomatic, it's in the middle of the word at the end of a syllable. But if it's at just the end of a word, crimp. Now, obviously, we're going to connect over. Now, we're not going to drop the P and say crimin, put a crim in. No, that doesn't work. Put a crimp in, pin. So it's going to be a weak P. The P is going to connect over to I. It's going to be crimp in, put a crimp in. Okay. So again, a lot of these things are contextual based on the sounds around, based on, are they at the end of a syllable? Are they at the end of a word specifically? Or are they inside of a word at the end of a syllable or at the start of a syllable or whatever we're talking about? There's not just one answer for like, oh, okay, anytime you see MP, it's going to be this, okay? Because it doesn't always work that way. So I hope that answers that. Number two, can of her own be pronounced of her own? Yes, it can. That's going to be a little bit, I want to say unclear, but I don't mean unclear as in like it won't be understood. Unclear in the sense of like it's not clearly pronounced. So because you're saying of, which is good. You're connecting the V to her, dropping the H. You could say of her. That would be fine. Keep the sound, drop the H. That's another way to say it, of her own, and we get a slightly longer, or no, actually, no, it's not a slightly longer R. I was thinking the next word started with an R. That R is then going to go ahead and connect over to O. So of her own, and the is like a bridge between the two. However, there are some words that end in an R sound, like the word are or the word her, that are function words, okay, instead of content words. If you don't know about that, I have a lesson talking about content and function. I've mentioned it in a couple places. I can talk more about that if you have questions, just let me know. But it's a very common function word that already tends to kind of get reduced. We tend to drop the H. And so if you're speaking more slowly again, if you're speaking more clearly, then no, you would not say of her own, right? So like she did it of her own volition, meaning she chose to do it, right? So if you say she did it of her own volition, you're going like, of her own? What's of her own? Like that's not a word. That doesn't make any sense. But if you say she did it of her own volition, of her own volition, of her own volition, that's perfectly fine. You can reduce the her to like an but keep that R in there. And that's okay. So it's kind of a weird one. But that is possible in normal speed to faster speed speech, yes. Number 3, can as his energy drained away be pronounced as, oh God, stupid IPA, okay. As his energy Jane, I think you forgot an R there. Janed away. So if you intentionally left out that R, no. But yeah, if you add that R in, that looks like it should be fine. And it wouldn't be like can it, like that should be the way that it's supposed to be pronounced. I mean, you can keep the H on his, as his. Normally we're going to drop the H, connect the Z, as is energy, energy. Yeah, God, I really hate that the IPA writes duh, like the letter D, and then that weird sort of like three looking letter for j, because it makes it seem like it's like two sounds. Technically, in a way, it is two things put together. It's d and j, but it's one sound, and it's, God, I hate it so much. Anyway, as his energy drained away, drained away. Yeah. See, since my brain is using resources to interpret the IPA, I'm trying to pay attention to like, okay, are any of these reductions? Is there anything else we can do? And nothing's coming to mind as his energy drained away. So yeah, again, as long as you put an R after the J in drain, then yes, that would, that's the way that we pronounce it. Yes. Denny Buck. I want to say Danny Beck. Denny Buck. There we go. Hi, how are you feeling? Pretty good. Today's a pretty good day. I'm kind of excited because I have some magic cards coming in the mail. Yay. I don't usually buy magic cards, but I kind of felt like buying a big bulk lot, and I like going through them and stuff. So it's going to be something I do to kind of help me relax a bit. But I'm trying to pop my knuckle here. I have a bad habit of that. But yeah, I still haven't. I assume you're referring to like the ADHD or whatever, or because last week was kind of crazy and stressful. But yeah, I haven't been to the doctor yet again, so that's fine. That'll be in a couple weeks. Yeah, doing pretty good, Gabriel. Is that Gabriel, or is that a different Gabriel? Because I see a different picture. I don't know if you change your profile or if this is another person named Gabriel. But yes, hello. Welcome to the chat. Oh no, I can't watch the live right now. Maybe I'm here later. What? Oh, maybe I'll be here later. That's okay, Steve. Don't worry about it. Hello, Delio. Doing pretty good. Hope you're fine as well. Denny, about your last video, I can't speak today. About your last video on how to breathe the sounds out, I noticed I wasn't breathing through words at all and kind of having fried words all the way. Well, see, there you go. It's an important thing. Right, there are people who use that thing called vocal fry, and it's kind of just like how they speak. And I can do that sometimes too. Like usually when I wake up in the morning, I just don't want to speak because like, I might seem like very comfortable and kind of animated here on the live stream, but that's because like I'm in a comfortable teacher position and I'm answering your guys' questions, so I have something to focus on. But normally in my day-to-day life, like I don't usually care to like go and talk to people. I'm not very outgoing in that way. So anyway, in general, I kind of don't care to talk much, but in the morning, I specifically don't care to talk much because I just woke up. And so if I do talk, I might kind of be talking like this, like, yeah, okay. And it's just like, I'm not breathing the sounds out because I don't care. I don't have the energy to, to do that. And there are some people, I guess, that maybe talk that way normally for some reason. It sounds kind of weird. It'll stand out to us, but it's a thing that exists. So yeah, most speakers of American English will have a certain amount of airflow, right? And the trick is finding that airflow because, again, it's, as I mentioned, it's a little dynamic. It depends on, like, if it's a t, right? You got to push out a t. Obviously, we want to hear that breath a bit, but in the flow of speech, we don't want to be hearing the breath, like constantly. So if you feel like you have this sort of like fry going on where everything is just kind of stuck back here, you're not breathing enough. Okay. And if you start to sound kind of a little too breathy, like you're kind of out of breath, like you just ran a lot and now you're trying to speak, then that's too much. So try to find that middle ground. But good, I'm glad that has been useful for you. And Russian name, or possibly Ukrainian Cyrillic written name, I assume Russian. I think you were here last time. Kind of hard to remember since I don't read Cyrillic, but yes, hello. Welcome back. Could you please read aloud the verse and then make phonetic explanations of the word linking phrases? Okay. I guess I could do that. I could easily spend a lot of time here. I don't want to spend, like 30 minutes doing this, but okay. So could you read aloud the verse and then make phonetic explanation of the words linking phrases? Okay. So yeah, so we'll run through this. Okay. I'll try to touch on some variation too, but again, I don't want to spend like 30 minutes on this. I'll go through the whole thing first. So that'll also give me context. You have no enemies, you say? Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty that the brave endure must have made foes. Okay. And looks like there's more. More there. Probably YouTube cut you off there. You've never turned the wrong to right. You've been a coward in the fight. So notice I'm reading this a particular way because I'm picking up, like, alas is a really old word that nobody uses in everyday speech. I don't know if this is Shakespeare specifically, but it sounds very dated. Obviously, it rhymes. And so when we read something like this, that kind of sounds maybe like it's really dated. It's supposed to be like poetry type thing. We tend to have a certain tone. We try to make it dramatic. So that's why you're hearing my intonation come out like, you have no enemies, you say. Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty, right? Like normally we don't talk that way. So right off the bat, this is not a good example for pronunciation, but I can sort of adjust it to how we would speak. So like, you have no enemies, you say. Alas, my friend, the boast is poor. He who has mingled in the fray of duty. So that would probably be a little more closer to speech. But you have no enemies. You have no enemies. Okay. You have. We're probably going to drop the H. You don't have to. You have. You can keep the H. We're probably going to drop it. You have. Link it with a small W between the U and the A. You have. You have no enemies. Have no enemies. Okay. No enemies. Again, a small W linking between O and E. No enemies. You have no enemies. Now notice there's a comma. Most teachers, the easy thing to teach is if there's a comma, you pause. Not always true. If you're speaking very clearly, if you're being dramatic, if you are perhaps reading, yes, pause at a comma. In real life, we actually use intonation to show the comma is there most of the time. There are some times when we will pause, but we'll show intonation and we'll continue to link the sounds, right? So you have no enemies, you say. Enemies, you. So that Z it's written with an S, but it's a Z sound, will actually sort of continue through. And I'm going to be making a lesson about a new concept I developed called falling forward into the next word. It's like the basis of all linking, and it's not just in English, it works in Spanish too, for example. But that's kind of related to that a bit, because it's not just about the linking itself. Like z and y don't really link, like there's nothing special. It's just a z sound and a y sound. But you can hear that it's not enemies you, it's like enemy zu. So even though there's nothing special, I wouldn't call it linking. It does still sound like the sounds are flowing into each other from word to word to word. Okay, you say, it's just u to s, you say. Okay. And nation of the words, linking phrases. So if you have, as I go through this, if you have any specific questions that I'm not touching on, like there's a particular sound, you're like, is this sound in this word? Then just let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to focus on like the linking and the reductions that would probably happen. Alas. Okay, so it's it's a schwa at first. Alas, ass. So it's the ass sound, alas. And even though in this case, right, there's an exclamation point. This is a weird old thing. Like they would put like an exclamation point and then the next word wouldn't be capitalized because it's like, it's supposed to be like one sentence, but it's like they want to emphasize the word alas, like alas, my friend. So notice that S will still, usually this doesn't happen. We don't like connect sounds through a period or an exclamation point. This is sort of a special case where the S is still going to go, alas, my friends, alas, my friend, whatever. My and friend, nothing special there. Just I to F, my friend. Alas, my friend. There would probably pause for drama. But if I say, alas, my friend, the friend, so we can link that N and TH, and specifically I'm doing more of a dental D there. But if it's being more dramatic, we want to pause, right? Alas, my friend, the boast, right? So the boast is. The T wants to flap into a D and connect to the I, but because of the S, right? If there's like a K or an S or an F before the T, it can't actually flap because of the physical mechanics. And so it'll become sort of like a weak D. Boast is. Remember, there's a Z in is. It's not an S. The boast is poor. So we're going to hear almost a disconnect between the Z and the P just because the P closes, but we're not trying to pause or hold the P. It's the physical mechanics of blocking the air and pushing out the P. He who has mingled. This is a good one. He who has. So we have he, with that H is at the start of the sentence. We have to pronounce the H. You can't just drop it. Okay. Maybe in really, really fast speech, if you're speaking really unclearly, you say like you has, like, or he did it. Like maybe, but it's almost always, like by default, even in normal speech, we're going to keep the H at the start of a sentence. But who, okay, so who is spelled WH, but it's just an H sound. It's H plus U. Okay, ignore the W. It's not who or something like that. So who. But going from E, he, to who, we can link the E, drop the H, and say hew. And we'll link it with a small Y, because going from E to any vowel will create a small Y sound. Hew. And then again, the H on has, we can also drop, link from the U with a small W to a, hew as. This is a normal or faster speed speech. You can always bring one or both of those H's back. If you're speaking more slowly or clearly, you're going to bring the H's back. You don't really have a choice. So if I say he who has, you need those H's. But if I just say he who has mingled. And then has can actually kind of be reduced to like I or a. So like he who is mingled. It's not like is. He who is mingled. Okay, mingled, of course, is and we are going to pronounce the g here because it's actually kind of like the L is going to be a half L, and the g is going to sort of sound like it breaks off into that second syllable, mingled. It could still be very, very light, which is, I think, if I remember, it's part of the hack that I give you guys to like always do just a light g regardless. Yeah, mingled. You can actually do no g there, mingled. But a little bit of a g there is natural. So he was mingled in the fray. Mingled in, din has flap D, mingled in. In the, flatten out the TH, just pull off in the, or you can get a little dental D in the, mingled in the fray. Remember this flattened TH, this dental T, dental D version of the TH is not informal. It is perfectly natural, normal, common. Natives use it all the time and we don't even realize it. Mingled in the fray of. So fray, yeah. We're going to link with a small Y again because we're going from A, which ends in I, not E, ends in I. And anytime we go from E or I to another vowel, we're going to get a small Y. So fray of. You can drop the V on of, Freya duty, right? In the Freya duty. Now, if you're speaking a little more dramatic, like you're reading it the way the poem is supposed to be, like he who has mingled in the fray of duty, we're probably going to keep that V, just because it sounds a little more solid. It sounds, 200, 300 years ago, people probably enunciated a little bit more, but also for the purpose of clearly hearing everything and making it more dramatic, we tend to not reduce or drop things as much. So, but in normal speech, you say Freya duty. So duty. Oh wait, he who is mingled in the Freya duty that. Again, I'm using the intonation. I'm not necessarily pausing the flow of the breath and the sound. Duty that. He was mingled in the Freya duty. That the. So instead of doing that the. So you're kind of stopping the T here in this position on the flat. It doesn't have to be right on the teeth. That's just the easy way to explain it and to visualize it. But that the, and then because you're going to push out that dental D, that the. You can also do a dental D at the start of that. So that the brave endure. Now, endure, the first time you might have heard me say endure. And part of the reason I did that is because, again, it sounds kind of old-timey. It sounds kind of dramatic. Saying endure with an ur is perfectly fine. There are people who naturally say it that way. For me, I usually would pronounce this endure. I just say it as an sound. Because ur doesn't, there are some words where it can maybe sound kind of better, but ur is not really something that you ever have to do, I don't think. So braven or braven, so that endure, the N part, fully enunciated as N, could be in or un, reduced, it doesn't matter. The V in brave is going to connect over, so braven, doesn't matter. And then endure or endure, the brave endure. Must have. So again, drop the H. We want to link over to the A. The T from must wants to flap into a D, but the S is going to stop it from flapping. It's going to become a weak D. Must have. Or you can even contract it, because we have the contracted version, which I don't think we usually write this. No, it looks bad in writing, but it would be must have. So you're just going from that D to the V. Like if I say I've, you've, must have made foes. So must have made foes. And you can stop that D in made. Must have made foes. Whether it's a held or a glottal, probably more of a held, because we don't want to like made foes. Like it stops the flow a little too much here. Or you could push out the D, made foes. If a little D comes out, that's always possible. But by default, it would probably be a held stop. You've never turned. So I'll just try to finish this up here really quick. You've never, the lips and the tongue are independent. So vn. So before I release the V, the N is going to come up. And then it happens almost immediately, but it's not you've never. It's you've never. Okay, you've never turned the. So again, you go turn. You want to do turn the. Yeah, you could just go here, or you can put the N here and slide it. Turn the, or you turn the. Yeah, you've never turned the wrong to right. You've never turned the wrong to the wronged. That T and two, remember the T and two is very susceptible to the sounds around it, especially before it. So you can say wronged, you can push it out as a T, that's fine. You can say wronged, make it more of a D, that's fine. It's not going to flap here because the sound before it isn't a vowel, but it can still come out as a D because the sound before it is voiced. Wronged, okay, wrong to right, wrong to right. And then stop T on right, right. You've been. So again, we're gonna v. So we start. You just close the lips. You've been. Again, been in American English is like eh. It's not e or eh. It's eh. Been. Like it. You've been a. So the N connects to a. Been a coward. Cow. So the cow. Cower. It's not coward or something. Cower. It's just sound. Coward in, flap D. Coward in the, again, flat, in the, just pull it off, in the fight. And then a stop T on the fight. You've never turned the wrong to right, or you've never turned the wrong to right. You've been a coward in the fight. Yeah. Okay, so that probably took a little longer than I wanted to, but there you go. That's sort of a quick run through, mostly focused on linking. Raul, hi Josh, how are you doing? How can I get in contact with you? I have an email link if you go to the about page of my channel, there should be something that says email, and it'll show you I think you have to click to show it or something, but you can just email me. David, hello. Glad to hear you're doing good. Wish I could say the same. Yeah, I know, life is rough. Sorry, you can't say the same, but I mean, yeah, I'm all right. I'm pretty good, but again, I'm really looking forward to those magic cards, which, by the way, I will say, I'm really going to try to shorten these live streams because I'm like, it makes me late for stuff because, you know, I like being here with you guys and stuff, and I kind of get like carried away. And then next thing I know, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to go do this thing, and now I'm late. And so, I'm going to try to keep the live stream to like 2, maybe 2.5 hours. We've been doing like 3 to 3.5 hours. So we're going to lose about an hour. So just keep that in mind. And if for some reason there's a bunch of questions that I can't get to, I mean, eventually I'm not going to be able to answer everybody's questions, because if we have like 100 people in here and you're all asking questions, right, it's going to happen eventually. So I'm just getting too popular. You know, we reached 3,000 subscribers. Yes. Thank you guys so much. 3,000 subscribers. That is fantastic. We're well on our way up to my next goal, which is 10,000. So thank you for your support. And we will have a 10,000 subscriber special. I did one at 100, 1,000. I'm going to do one at 10,000. Probably do another at 50,000 just because that's a pretty big gap. But yeah, 10,000 subscriber special will be coming. I don't know what I'm going to do for that, but Gabriel, it's me, but in a different account. Oh, okay, I see. And on a different account. Why on? That's a good question. In is perfectly logical. It makes perfect sense from a general logical perspective, but we don't, and depending on what you're saying, how you're talking about the account, it could be in potentially. And we may even, natives, when it's supposed to be on, we may occasionally slip out an in, and it's like, okay, whatever, we understand, it doesn't matter. But usually we say on an account. And we think of the account as like a platform where you can access, you know, your information or whatever it is, bank information, YouTube information, you know, whatever it is, whatever kind of account it is. So we just say on an account. Although I guess, yeah, so I need to log on to my account, and then I don't have any money in my account, right? See, in that case, now the account is a container that holds your money, right? So it depends on how you're talking about it. Anyway, my first question is about the word, yeah, which is not only used to describe the color. I really hope that loud noise outside does not interfere with our thing. This mic is very, very sensitive, so if you guys are hearing a lot of background noise, let me know. I really hate when they're doing work and I'm trying to do stuff. But there's also cloud called Microsoft. Yeah, okay. So long story short, dictionaries only list one pronunciation, but when asking people around and looking at videos, I've heard about 10 other different ways. Okay, so yeah, there are some words that, based on how they're spelled and based on the fact that there may actually be a little bit of a range of how different regions pronounce them. There's some words like this where we're kind of not sure how to pronounce it. So if I were to use the word, which is not a very common word, of course, but if I were to pronounce this word, I think one of two pronunciations would probably come out. I would either say Azure, so it's with je and or I'd probably say like Azure, maybe even Azure, I guess. But no, Azure sounds weird. So Azure or Azure. I'd probably try to say one of those two, and whichever one comes out is what happens. But I think there are people who use like an SH sound. Let's say like Assure or Assure or something like that. I don't know. But that's mostly what I've heard, and I would probably use one of those two. So I don't think it matters too much. Like whatever, like you say Microsoft Azure or Microsoft Azure. It's fine. People are going to understand you. Just pick one. How do you pronounce barnyard? Like that? I heard somebody say it like barnyard. That sounds like somebody from Boston, where they get the coffee and get in the car, right? It's in the barnyard. I'll go get it. It's in the barnyard. Like it sounds maybe like they would say it like that way. I don't know. It could be a regional thing, but the way that I would pronounce it, the way that I would expect to hear it, would be barnyard. So barnyard. Yeah. Other words I'd appreciate you break down are, okay, so cyan or cyan, doesn't matter. Pick one. I think also some people say cayenne, although that would be this. Cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper. What do you mean that's misspelled? Oh, duh. I'm stupid. Yeah, so that would be cayenne, or maybe cayenne, but I think some people pronounce the color also cayenne, so you might hear that, but just pick cyan, like just say cyan, or if you like how cyan sounds better, just say that instead. Doesn't matter. Turquoise. How would other people say that? Is there another way to say turquoise? As far as I know, there's one way to pronounce that word, so I would recommend saying turquoise. Okay, Elysium, Elysium with a Z. Yeah, that's another word where it's like, how do you pronounce this? I don't know. I'm just gonna pick one. I'd probably try to say like either Elysium or Elysium with an I sound. Elysium. Yeah. I noticed in the American accent, the sound goes up at the end of a word. For some cases, I'd really love to learn an accent and would love some tips. Okay, so two things about that. Number one, so going up at the end of a word is an intonational feature. And it's not just in the American accent. So it's also not just in English. Like if we say, do you like it? Right, we tend to go up with a special kind of tone to signal that it's a yes or no question. And I know that's not what you're asking about, but you're probably talking about like maybe words like within a sentence. And depending, it's possible that maybe that might happen. But in general, most Americans, I would say, don't do that. That on the extreme end, that's something called uptalk, where like everything you say, you kind of just go up like you're saying a question like all the time, and it's kind of annoying and it really stands out and bugs a lot of people because this is not the normal way to talk and we don't know why you're doing this. And yeah, I mean, some people talk that way, whatever, it is what it is. There's a YouTuber, I mentioned this before, there's a YouTuber, vegan YouTuber that I used to follow a lot. I still watch some of her videos. And I noticed that she talks this way. And it was so hard to focus on the content because she was just going up and up and up. And it kept like bugging me. And I was like, ugh. So I had to kind of try to ignore that. So for the most part, if it's like towards that extreme end, I would just completely ignore it. Just like, don't talk that way. Don't try to talk that way. If you hear people talking that way, just ignore it. You might be talking about something that's a little more subtle than that, in which case you'll have to clarify and be a little more specific. Maybe give me some examples. But unless it's a basic intonational thing, then just ignore it. I have a question about the ah and the unmerged ah, but I am quite resistant to ask because you touched on this topic so many times. Ask away. Ask away. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I keep talking about stuff and you guys keep having questions. I mean, yeah, it's like I already talked about it, but I understand that whether it's because maybe something wasn't quite clear or, maybe you need a review. That's normal. It's natural. Obviously, there's lots of people that have the same question. So I understand. It's perfectly fine. Ask whatever you want to ask. I will, of course, point you to the video, but I assume you've already seen the video and you've maybe gone over the video several times and you still have a question and you've heard me explain it and you still have a question. So if you have a question, you have a question. That's fine. Clearly something just isn't clicking or hasn't sunk in, and that's normal. So yeah, ask whatever you want to ask. I know that aw and ah are completely different sounds, but people are more likely to pronounce some words with the ah monophthong. Is that the question? Because that's not a question, that's a statement. So you're saying like people who don't have the merger. So, or you mean people in general? Yeah, it's just kind of unclear because I assume that's what you mean. Because obviously if you have the merger like me, then all words are going to have the ah monophthong. Or do you mean like instead of using ah, like some people who, whether they have the merger or not, they tend to use the unmerged ah sound? Is that the question, I guess? I don't know. You have to clarify that. Can where be reduced to, see, that's not how I would transcribe that. I'm pretty sure you're trying to say were, which I would write W-E-R. Because if you write W-U-R, I'm going to try to pronounce it like were or war or something. But yes, can where be reduced? Yes, it definitely can. Let's see here. Where are the keys? Where are the keys? Where are the keys? Yes. In faster speech, for sure, you can reduce it to were. Where are the keys? Where are the keys? And notice even there, I'm saying where are the keys, not where the keys. You probably don't even hear the R. Well, in Finn's case, you might, but because normally we would say wearer. We do like, we don't write apostrophe RE, but we would speak it that way. And then in faster speech, that the length of that R gets kind of reduced even more. We don't even have that little intonational inflection really. So it's like where are the keys? Where are the keys? Where are the keys? Where are the keys? So it kind of all gets crunched down almost into like one sound. In normal speed speech, where are the keys? Where are the keys? Yeah, it sounds a little unclear, like a little extra unenunciated. It's possible that somebody might say what, but the rest of the sentence is pretty clear. Like, so normal speed speech, I mean, it works. It exists. We do use it that way, but it won't always be clear what you're saying. And then of course in slower speed speech, or if you're emphasizing like, where are the keys? Where are the keys? Even in that case, we're likely to uncontract, say, where are the keys? So again, there's a range to it, depending on your speed. Tempestade, message retracted. That's okay. Full moon dweller, a preposition problem. Dump them in or to the garbage. Which one is correct? Dump them in the garbage, dump them to the garbage. Definitely not to. Dump them to the garbage. Yeah, I can't imagine anybody saying to. I don't know. I assume maybe you heard an example of somebody saying to, or you're just like, I'm not sure if I can use to. But yeah, it would be in, because the garbage is a container. So you dump it into, like, and usually literally it's an actual container that we have in the kitchen or, in some bin outside. So you literally dump it into that container. Hello, Lily. Welcome to the chat. I haven't seen a single American who doesn't use vocal fry, especially at the end of a sentence, but there are people who over exaggerate it. Okay. Well, I guess we all use it to some extent, maybe. For me, so you say there are some people who over exaggerate it. Because I guess like people have commented, I think David even had commented like that I guess I have a vocal fry. But I'm still breathing through my words, so I'm not like this. I'm not sitting here talking like this all the time. Like, hey guys, what's up? How's it going? Right. Like that just sounds very low energy. And even if I am low energy, I don't usually talk that way. So maybe it's sort of I think I've heard that before from there's a channel that I sometimes watch videos for, Accent Help. And I think he mentioned that like a lot of Americans do have some vocal fry, but because like if everybody has it, or if like most people have it, then it's the norm and it's not noticed, right? So it's like, that's why I would say like most Americans don't really have vocal fry, because maybe we all have a little bit of vocal fry and it's just normal. Like, is it really considered vocal fry at that point if everybody has a little bit of it? So I definitely don't think it's something that you have to imitate to sound natural or anything like that. But I definitely would strongly recommend avoiding it in like a clear, exaggerated way where you're kind of always just talking like this and like, hey, what's up? Right? Like it's most people don't talk like that. Okay. Stupid chat, stop moving. For turquoise, I can't talk, guys. I'm just an English teacher. I can't talk. For turquoise, apparently, some people put a little W sound after the Q. Turquoise. Oh, that sounds very annoying. But I didn't hear you do it. Do you add a W sound in quarter and quartet? What about quarantine? Well, yes, because there's a W in those. Okay, so for quarter, quartet, and quarantine, there's supposed to be a W, but you can reduce it and drop the W. You can say quarter, so it's just or, quarter, quartet, quarantine. For turquoise, there's not supposed to be a W. Turquoise, like, God, that sounds so annoying. It's almost like nails on a chalkboard. Turquoise, 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 turquoise. Maybe if you get a little bit of a W, it still sounds okay. I can imagine that. But to say like turquoise, God, no, I hate it. If some people say it that way, it's fine. It is what it is. But I don't think I've ever really heard it that way. It would stand out very much to my ears, and I'd be like, why are you saying it that way? So I don't know. If some people say it that way and you like it that way, say it. But that's not how I say it. So if you want to sound like me, then there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Oh, probably what Lily said. Because I think you asked about the vocal fry. Oh, with the uptalk. Got it. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah. So ignore uptalk. Like, not everybody uses it. I think there's like I don't want to make it seem like it's a big thing, but I think there has been over the last, I don't know, 20 years or so, like a growing number of people who use uptalk, mostly females, at least traditionally, because we think of it as part of Valley girl speech, which is like, teenage girls in the Silicon Valley. And this is kind of dated now because it's already 2020. Like, I mean, Valley girl speak was I became aware of it when I was like a teenager. So, it's probably spread out, and that's why it's kind of growing. But I don't think it's going to like take over American English. It's still like a small number of people who do that. And maybe to some extent in, say millennials and Gen Z, maybe to like some small extent, like you might notice it a little bit in the way I speak here and there. But I'm not saying you might notice it a little bit in how I speak here and there, right? It's not like da 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 da, where like I might have a little bit of up here and there. I think some people have mentioned that. And so I think maybe it has affected the pronunciation of younger generations to an extent, but it's not something that's going to be like the way Americans speak. Maybe like in another 2 or 3 generations, perhaps, but you don't got to worry about that. So anyway, I would ignore it, completely ignore it. No one is alive or no one is alive. So a spelling on Gmail for ads, welcome, which is correct. It should be the one without the dash. Honestly, me personally, I've always had trouble with like when we should hyphenate, which is when you put the little dash. Called a hyphen in writing. Because even for us natives, like, because we have some compound words that are spelled with a space, like they're written as 2 words with like there's no hyphen or dash between them. They're not one word, but they're still considered a compound word. We have other compound words that are written with like a hyphen, right, to show that they're linked, which makes sense. And then we have other compound words. I think most compound words are written as one word, like baseball, right? And that to me makes perfect sense. Like all compound words should be written like that. I'm pretty sure that's what they do in German. So because of that, there are even some educated individuals. Like, I mean, if you're really educated and you're like, really on that, then you probably don't have too much trouble with it. But there are some people who are even educated who, and I'm even an English teacher, and that's something that I never paid too much attention to because I'm just like, well, I'll just look it up. Like it always kind of confused me of when to do it. So yeah, like I'm not always sure on whether you should hyphenate or not, but I'm pretty sure in this case that it should be 2 words, no one. Now, if you write nobody, which would be the same thing, just said a little differently, that should be 1 word, nobody. You been is correct without the have, like you've been, or both are correct. Okay. If you drop, like if I say how you been, usually we're also probably gonna reduce the you to ya, make it like a really clear yeah, how you been, or I could even say how you been. It sounds more informal. It exists. It's probably not grammatically correct, but it does exist. Yeah. So if you are in a situation where, like say a professional environment, probably don't do that. Now, if I say like you have been late every day, if I say you've been late every day and I drop that V, now it just sounds wrong. It doesn't, I mean, it almost kind of sounds good probably because of the informal version, like in a question, how you been? But it doesn't quite sound right. So there are times when it will sound informal. There are times when it will sound wrong. And if you're speaking fast enough, we may not even notice and it doesn't matter because that V is so small and then it's close to the B. But if you say like you been late, that's just going to sound like broken grammar. So, Drippy, welcome. Do natives even use does and were? Yes, all the time. I know it's very common to use only don't and was, even though it's grammatically incorrect. What accent you have? Okay. I'll come back to the second question in a second, but I know it's very common to use. I don't really understand your question because like we use does and were all the time. Like, can you explain a little bit more? I would assume maybe there's a bit of a listening problem going on. I'm not sure, but like a hearing problem for ear training. And then with the grammatically incorrect thing, I have a vague idea of where you might be going with that. But if you can give me some examples, like example sentences, then that would help a lot. And we can talk more about that. Have you ever heard some people in your area pronounce the word bin, like the male name Ben? It happens on occasion, like we get lazy, because as I said, Americans pronounce it with eh, and especially on the West Coast where the eh can kind of drop almost into eh, which you don't have to do. Like it's something that is incidental. We can kind of say it as Ben, like I've been here before. It's fine, but it's not supposed to be like that. So if you always say Ben, it's probably going to stand out and be like, But if it's like every once in a while it comes out that way, it's probably not going to be noticed. Especially if you're speaking normally. If you're speaking more slowly, like, oh, I've been here many times. I guess it doesn't sound too bad, but depending on who's listening, they'll probably be like, what? Why are you saying that? So it exists. What accent do I have? This might be an example of kind of what you were asking, I guess, Drippy, what accent you have. So if you drop do, it sounds very informal. And you will hear that a lot in like rap and hip hop and in, I guess, like the Ebonics or African-American vernacular type speech, which, as I've said many times before, is perfectly fine, but it does not sound like within standard general American English that most Americans speak. It sounds very informal because it's broken grammar. So if you say what accent you have, sounds informal. Be aware of that. If you want to speak that way, that's fine. But it should be on how most Americans would speak. We say, what accent do you have? Do you have? Because we need do to make the question. My accent, I speak one of the neutral accents. I've made a whole lesson on this that you can watch. Just type in English hacks neutral accent. You'll probably find it, where I talk about all the data and information about that. But most Americans, with the big exception of the South, and then there's a couple regions here, like in Boston or, certain other little areas here and there that have a clearly different accent. Most Americans sound neutral. Okay. That being said, there's Western American English. There's sort of like middle of the country, especially like middle north, around like Chicago and through there. And then there's the northeastern, like New England type area. And throughout all of this, the Western American is like definitely the biggest, more or less consistent area. But throughout all of those, there are slight little tiny differences in the exact way that certain sounds are used or the way that certain things are pronounced. Some words will stand out, like the word sure. I say sure. Some people say sure. Some people say shore. That will stand out depending on how you say it where you're from. I think in the Northeast, they say shore. I think also in the South, they say shore usually. But aside from certain words, like say there's the cot merger, which I've talked about many times. The cot merger is where ah and aw just become ah as one sound. And what most Western American speakers, including myself, have the cot merger. It still sounds natural. It still sounds generally neutral. Okay, so somebody who has the merger and somebody who doesn't have the merger, maybe if you have a little bit of natural talent, or maybe if you've studied pronunciation a bit, you're going to hear the difference. There is an actual difference between these two accents, but in the flow of normal speech, me and somebody from Chicago are generally going to sound the same. Like we're probably not going to notice much, maybe on certain words, but we're not really going to notice much that we're speaking differently. And again, there's variation. Different people have different levels of natural perception and stuff, but for the most part, we all speak general American. It's an umbrella that covers most of the country, even though the exact sounds might be a little bit different sometimes. So that's just a long explanation to clarify, because I always feel I have to do that. I speak Western American English. I am from California. I wouldn't say that I speak California English necessarily, because I think of that as like surfer speak. But regardless, I sound neutral, like most Americans do from most parts of the country. Anyway, Shun Shun, I haven't seen you in a while. Hello, welcome back. Let me know if you have a question. I see you do, so I'll come back to that. Tempestaji, I've seen. See, we were talking about Ben. I've seen some native speaking talk. I think I meant native speakers, native speakers talking like this, but I think that's not good grammar. Let's see what Ash has to say about it. What was the last thing he asked? Oh yeah, you've been okay. I'm always behind, so. Okay, like R and or, the merge doesn't exist in this case. Both have to be pronounced differently. Yes. Okay. So R, so that specific word, right? There is the R colored ah, which is R, and that's how we fully pronounce A-R-E. That specific word R can be reduced to like or possibly even a schwa in some special cases. But yes, it's supposed to be pronounced R. So it's ah-er. And then or is o-er. Now, in the merger, for people who don't have the merger, they have R, which would be ah. I'm pretty sure it's ah plus and then they have all plus so it'd be or. Which to me just sounds really annoying and uncomfortable. But people who don't have the merger will say it that way. People who do have the merger, what happened is because whatever moved back here, and the disappeared, it sort of moved down here and the lips went away. Now the R colored whatever would be so R. And then the R colored O becomes an R colored O. So it's or instead of R, or. Yes, so those are pronounced differently. Keep in mind, of course, there are reductions. So like the word or is usually reduced to in actual speech. But if I say, for example, notice I said for example, if I say before, okay, that or is stressed and it will be or. It has to be or. But if or is unstressed, then it usually reduces to with the exception of words like work, word, world, the W-O-R ones, those are just pronounced That's a special case. We know it's complicated, but yes, to answer your question, simply put, they are different. They have to be pronounced differently, yes. So a couple weird things happened because of the merger. What's the other thing? There's another thing that happened. Yeah, so some words like lawyer, right? So that would be law, lawyer. So we don't say liar. That one actually, just like or was or, it kept that shift from to or, and we say lawyer. So even though it's spelled A-W, usually A-W in the merger will represent and that's like easy. It almost always represents that. But there are some exceptions, like lawyer, where for various reasons it actually shifted up into O. So the merger generally makes things easier, but there are a couple little things here or there that you have to be aware of. Regarding the never-ending enigma that is and can you explain it and analyze the exclamation all native speakers make when you feel sorry for okay. I was like, exclamation, where's this going? Because I was thinking exclamation as in like a declaration. Like I'm going to exclaim this to the world. When you feel sorry for someone or you see something cute, it sounds like it's slightly rounded, not all the way to O, but certainly more than if you were to say ah. Oh, there you are. Okay. So how I would say that. Ah. Okay, my lips aren't rounding. My lips are completely relaxed. Maybe some speakers get a little bit of rounding. I don't know. For people who don't have the merger, I would assume that they use that backwards C. Say "aw," but to me that just sounds weird. Like maybe I just haven't actually heard that. It's yeah, like any little bit of rounding I think would sound weird to me. But apparently you're hearing it, so I don't know. Yeah, the AH sort of like, there you are. It's like, That actually, to me, I think because it's so short, usually, like if I say like, there you are, I'm probably But if I say like, there you are, it's actually kind of more that unmerged and so that's sort of a peculiar one. If we say it nice and short, it kind of just like shifts forward, I guess, a little bit. Whatever, it's a random case, but yeah, I would say the exclamation is because there's a certain intonation that goes with that. Shun, teacher, can you help me with this question? Maybe. What does the coordinating conjunction? Why you capitalize the C on conjunction? There's no capital there. Anyway, what is the coordinating conjunction but? See, I hate grammar terms. Coordinating conjunction. Not saying you did anything wrong. I hate grammar terminology. What does the coordinating conjunction but in the sentence do? I'm talking to everyone here but you. Does it mean that she's not talking to that person? Yes, that's exactly what it means. But means but, right? We don't have to go into like coordinating conjunction and this and that, whatever. But is but, okay? So just like with the prepositions, how I tell you to try to build up a feeling for the prepositions, look at the different ways that it's used. Obviously, I have a whole book on the logic of prepositions. You can apply that to all words, right? So you look at all the different uses of but, you try to build a feeling for what but is essentially. And the way that but feels is it's like a pivot. So it's like something, 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 but this. Okay, so that could be an exception. Like in this case, I'm talking to everyone here but you. So you are not included, right? Or if I say, you might like it, but I don't. So that kind of works similarly, right? I'm saying, okay, you and me. So you like it, I'm the exception, I don't like it. But we don't think of it as an exception in that case. We're thinking of it as like, it's like a reversal or the opposite, like we're contrasting, like you like it, but I don't. So there's two opposites there. That's kind of what but does. It sort of like shifts it to maybe the opposite or the negative. And that's off the top of my head. I'd have to look in the dictionary to look at all the different meanings of but and how it's used. But yes, that is what that means. Can you give more examples? Well, okay, I just did, I guess. If you want even more examples, I guess I could. It sounds. What? Did I say something? I don't know. It sounds. Are you talking about the end of word devoicing? That I probably did, because I'm gonna have a lesson on that in a couple weeks, by the way. And actually, if I can speed things up a bit, it might come next week, because I already have the next lesson lined up, and then I have another lesson I want to get to. So I have like 3 lessons that I really want to make. So I'm gonna try to do like 3 over the next, like between this week and next week, if I can. But anyway, could you explain General American, Mary, Shibboleth, the same in RP? Well, I'm not an expert on RP. RP would generally, I guess, follow like the traditional pronunciation in a way. So they would say like, which I don't even know if they would make a difference between the first one and the second one, because they're both AR. But the AR in RP and in the speech of some Americans is R. So it's an R-colored like cat. So it'd be marry, and then Mary with R-colored air. So again, I'm not an expert on RP. I can't talk about all the details there. 1 second, I have a package to get. Okay. Where was I? I feel like, oh yeah, I wasn't wearing my headset. Okay. Anyway, sorry for that. Got my magic cards. So excited, so happy. This is going to turn from an English channel to a Magic the Gathering channel. Bam. Just going to unbox it. No. Okay, so Mary, Mary, Mary. The way that most Americans speak is it all just becomes one thing. Okay. Again, most Americans. There are some Americans who still use the "are," but most Americans do not. And even if there are many Americans who do, it's not required. Saying Mary for all cases is still going to sound very natural. It's still going to sound generally neutral. So make it easier on yourself. Say it the way I do. Mary, Mary, Mary. It's just air. So I see a hand. Is that a high five or is that a question? I don't know. Or is that a hi or a bye? I don't know. I'm confused. Hand doesn't mean anything. I don't know what that means. But okay. Oh my God, I actually like it when you go overboard with the vocal fry, I guess. It's when I get lazy. All e-boys talk with the vocal fry, to be fair. I wouldn't know because I don't watch e-boys, or I barely even know what that concept is. So Gen Z and your craziness. Anyway, I'm just the old man. Could you explain to me again how to use the aw after a W or with a W after? Not sure what you mean. Because remember, I don't use aw. That's not part of my pronunciation. So with the W after, I mean, I don't know if you're talking about the spelling AW. Maybe that's what it is. And we have John here with a super chat. Sorry, guys, I got to skip ahead for a second. Welcome, John. Thank you again for another super chat. I say the words like bet, bed clearly, but when saying check, sometimes the CH sounds like TR and E after CH sounds like ah. Do you think it's because I am dropping the tongue strong when making CH sound from the top of the mouth? Like no details about the tongue position, for example, stuff like, does the tongue tip need to touch your teeth very lightly? Thanks. So by TR, I can only assume that you mean the chur, where the T becomes a CH, and then we have the sound. Because if it's coming out as tur, where you're doing a T and an R, that just doesn't make any sense to me. And clearly you have some sort of really weird issue there that should be fixed. But provided that you're blending the T into a CH before the R, which is the way that I would speak if there's a T and an R consonant, like train, then for whatever reason, you're adding an R after the CH. And you're saying that the is check, after CH sounds like ah. Okay. Ideally, and 99% of the time, the is not going to be an ah. I'm thinking of the Western American sort of lowering of the first four front vowels, which again is incidental. It's not something that is supposed to happen. It's just something that can happen in Western American speech. If we're really lazy, maybe check might come out as like check, check, check in a way. It's almost like on the border between and ah, but it's not an ah. It's definitely not an ah. So that's a phenomenon that can exist. I don't recommend that you try to imitate that or whatever, because it's incidental. It's not supposed to happen. It just can't happen in the speech of Western Americans. So first, for the pronunciation of the CH in Czech, if you're getting an R, then what you're doing is you're going chur, chur, chur. You're pulling back into the and then going into the vowel, and you need to eliminate that tenseness in the middle of the tongue. It shouldn't be there. So maybe it has to do with the exact placement of how you're placing the CH and then tensing the rest of your tongue, that when you release it, you're sort of in an R sound, like chur, 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 chur. In which case you're just not doing the CH right. Or maybe the front of the tongue is right for the CH, but the back of the tongue is just, it's in more of an R position when it shouldn't be. So the way you fix that is just let the rest of your tongue not be in an R. So the placement for CH, 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 so it's in the T position, right? Because CH is technically a blending between T and sh, the SH sound, right? And what happens is we go into the T, and then we sort of slide it out into the SH, into one new sound, ch, ch, ch. So from that, you just go from the T position, ch, ch, and you want to sort of like push it through, like sh. You want to go into that SH position, but from the T, ch, ch, ch. Okay. So the rest of your tongue, ch, 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 ch. As I'm up into the T, I can kind of feel maybe a little bit of tenseness on the sides of my tongue, and they're bracing. They stay braced as I push through. Ch, 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 ch. So the sides, if I just do the ch sound isolated without going into the next sound, the sides of my tongue, feel like they're constantly bracing. Okay, they're sort of like, they're not like pushing super hard, but they're clearly touching to make that tight seal for the TH, or for the T, sorry. And then as I push through that T into the SH to blend them, the sides of the tongue don't move. Okay, they stay there for the sound itself. So that would tell me that if you have a bit of an R, chur, 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 you have some extra tenseness here or maybe here that is interfering with the flow of the breath. And you need to kind of relax that and get that down while using the sides to sort of hold the tongue in place and just relax the rest of those. And then ch, ch, ch. So it's really all with the front of the tongue. So that would be that part, to get rid of the R. And then to make sure that it doesn't sound like if you sound like it means that when you're releasing, you're going too far down, right? I, a. It could also have a little bit to do with your shape, because we know that the height isn't the most important thing. So you want to make sure that you can say ch as one sound, ch, 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 ch. Okay, if you have that, make sure you can say eh. It doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like it's halfway to like or something like that. Make sure it's a nice good eh. If you can do those two sounds in isolation, practice going between them. Ch, eh, ch, eh, che, che, che. And if you find you're going too far down, if you find that maybe you can do fine, but as you open up, it doesn't work as you go from the CH, then you need to play with it and get finer control over what your tongue is doing, leaving the CH sound. That's all this is. Again, it's a very straightforward process. You make sure you can do piece 1, you make sure you can do piece 2, and then you make sure that you can do the transition between the two. If you can't do any of those points, you have to practice it until you can do it, and then move on to the next point. Okay, that's all you're doing. It's like Legos. You're just putting Legos together to build a castle, right? That's all you're doing. That's basically how all pronunciation training works. When we get to the higher things like intonation and stuff, maybe it's not quite like that, but definitely for the basic sounds, flowing from sound to sound, linking, that's all you're doing, is you're just putting pieces together. So I hope that helps. And then should you touch the teeth? No, because remember, the T in English does not touch the teeth. So the placement for CH, because it starts in the T, you're not going to touch the teeth. If you're touching the teeth, that might actually be why you're having the R, because you're overextending your tongue. Even if I'm just trying to touch the teeth lightly, it's overextending my tongue, and it's causing part of my tongue here to be more tense and like pushing forward, and that it doesn't quite create an R, but it creates a weird sound going on. So that it should be back here on the bump. Okay, not back here, not touching the teeth, right in between. Ch. Okay. And don't even be close to the teeth. So going back up to where I was, wherever that was, what are we at? We're at 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we got about, I'll probably do 2.5 hours. So we have like 1 hour and 15 minutes left. But although I really want to open my cards, guys. So excited. Jesus Christ, where was I? Oh, okay. How do you pronounce Cambridge? Like that, Cambridge. I think some people might say Cambridge, but yeah, it's Cambridge. Hello everyone with my welcome Daniela. Yes. A little late today. That's okay. I think the last couple of live streams, I remember last time you were like right there. It's like, yeah. My first question is, can the expression where did be reduced to where'd? Yes. And it's not necessarily being reduced. Technically, contractions are reductions, but I don't like to teach it that way because I think it's useful to separate out those two concepts. So this would actually be a contraction. And it's not informal. If I say, where did he go? Where'd he go? Right? The D will even erase the H, connect over to the E. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Perfectly normal, natural speech. In writing, don't write that. Okay. English has a lot of standard contractions, like I'm, right? I am, I apostrophe am. You've, apostrophe VE for you have, like you have been, not you have a car. And those we will write and speak. But in addition, we have a bunch of spoken contractions, and I'm going to be making lessons about that too. A bunch of spoken contractions that we would never write. So informally, you can write where apostrophe D is okay, but like if you're just like sending a text message to somebody, like we don't really care all that much. Some of them look really bad in writing, even informally, but this one's okay. But in spoken speech, this is actually the default. This is the normal, most common way to say where did, unless for some reason you're emphasizing did, or you're speaking more slowly, more clearly. You want to, again, variation depending on the purpose of your sentence. But if it's just a normal, you say, oh, where'd he go? Right? That's the default normal way that we would say it. Gabriel spot on. They also have that vaping 24/7 thing going on. Oh, that's exactly me. There's also the ones who are, right, with the ones, so it's plural, who are, so who apostrophe R-E, who are, yes, who are constantly showing their hands full of veins and talking like that. Oh, I guess, I don't know, whatever. I don't know what's going on. I lost this part of the conversation. Does the word going have a W? Maybe I missed something. Okay. No, well, yes. It depends on how you say it. If you fully enunciate the word, so it's go and in, right? Or in, depending on depending on what pronunciation you're using. The way I say the added ing is E plus N, in. But regardless of what the exact vowel is that you use, E or I, if you fully enunciate, anytime, well, this is usually between words, but often also inside of words, anytime you go from O or U or ow, which end close to the W, it's not a full W position, and then you go into any other vowel, we're going to get what sounds like a small W between them, which links them. So if I say going, so it's not going. If you try to do a W, no, you will sound very strange. Going. It sounds like you're really over enunciating the word. And maybe if you have a special reason, you can do that. But like 99.9% of the time, no. It has to be a small W where you don't completely go into the W. So it's not going, it's going, go. So it's just the end of O, basically, which is not a full W. That would be O, which we don't say. We say O. Okay. The W closes more. Now, that being said, you can also get lazy with the O, especially in faster speech. And instead of bringing it all the way around, say going, you can say going. go, oh, oh, oh. So it's almost like a half O where we don't completely bring the lips around. There's still a little bit of that initial motion. If you don't have a little bit of start of that lip motion, it's not going to sound good. It's going to be like going, 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 going. That's going to sound like an accent. That's wrong. So we need a little bit of that, but you don't have to bring it all the way fully around to normal O in normal and faster speech. And it'll sound fine. So, but there's definitely no W. No, there's not a full W sound. There's a small W, maybe, if you're saying it pretty clearly, but not a full W under any circumstances, 99.9% of the time. Full moon dweller. I have a problem about words starting, or words that start with X, like explanatory, expectation. Any trick on that? Yes. So fully enunciated. Again, it might depend on the word, but off the top of my head, words that start with EX, fully enunciated should be right? So the third vowel, plus X is a KS, right? X is a KS usually. So X. However, in these words, it is usually not the stressed syllable, okay? Explanatory, expectation. Okay. Now in expectation, I think it gets secondary stress, which is okay. Secondary stress we can definitely usually still reduce because the primary stress is the most important thing. But in, say, explanatory, where it doesn't have any stress at all, if you fully enunciate it, you can say explanatory. That's fine. But normally we're going to reduce it to either or They're both fine. So you can say, and again, it needs to be really short and quiet. You don't want to say explanatory. That's a bit weird. You want to say or x, if it's a schwa, explanatory. So we really kind of want to just hear almost like there's nothing before it. And then plan. That's the part that really stands out. Explanatory. Okay. For expectation, again, secondary stress on X makes it a little more likely we might say just like really short and quiet because it's not the primary stress, so we don't want to hear it as much. But you can still reduce it, and you can say expectation. Here, probably for some reason, saying this would be a case where reducing it to sounds a bit weird, maybe because of that secondary stress. But if you do a schwa, expectation, that's the expectation. It's fine. Or it could be kind of like a partial where it's like halfway between and it might come out that way, but yeah, so it kind of depends on the word, but often it'll end up being reduced. That would be the trick. And to be safe, just reduce it to a schwa because it won't always work with it. Should words like written, mountain, etc. be pronounced by some like as a mountain written, but you pronounce the sound words should be pronounced? Okay, good. So I get this question quite often. It's a range. And I don't follow every little thing that other teachers do. I assume that they're just not telling you this information for whatever reason, maybe because it's more complicated and whatever, but it's really not that much more complicated. Real speech is dynamic. Now, that doesn't mean that we just change whatever sound we want to whatever other sound we want, right? I can't say mountain like mountain or something like that. No. Maybe if I'm being very playful with the language and it's clear what I'm talking about, like I want to go to the mountain, like, okay, sure, but that's not the way we would normally speak. Remember, there's a range based on how slowly and clearly you are enunciating. This works for sounds. This works for words. It works for the whole language, okay? But especially at that sound level, and certain rules that might apply, certain linking rules, how certain sounds physically work, like the T in this case, which we're going to talk about. The T is crazy. We know it's a very special thing. But on one end, you have the nice, good, clear, fully enunciated sound or word. So for written and mountain, that is the fully enunciated, clear word. We don't always use, in fact, we don't usually use the clearly, fully enunciated word. In my case, if you hear me saying written or mountain more often than not, it's because I'm an English teacher, I'm speaking to English learners, and I try to generally talk more or less the way that I normally talk. But even if it's just subconscious, there are going to be some things that get more clearly enunciated because I know I'm in the context of speaking to English learners, and I want to make sure that as many people can understand me as possible. So I will still use a lot of natural linking and this and that and whatever, but with certain words like mountain, it's maybe a little more likely that I'm going to enunciate that mountain. Okay, so the fully enunciated word, which you can use, right? Sometimes it just comes out that way. Even if you're speaking at normal speed, sometimes it just comes out that way because that's the fully enunciated way to say the word, and that's okay. It doesn't usually happen that way in normal speed speech. Usually, if you're going to say written or mountain, it's because maybe you're slowing down or you're emphasizing the word, maybe for clarity. So if I say I say the word written and you think I said something else, then I'm more likely when I repeat it to actually push out that T instead of saying written. I'll say, no, it was written. Okay. So it's dynamic. It depends on the purpose of why you're saying things. The normal, most common everyday way to say words like written and mountain is to use that glottal stop followed by the syllabic N, which is just, there's no vowel. Now there's also a step in between that. Okay. You can say written, which we have the I there. You can say written, or you can even say written, 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 where you keep that vowel plus the N, but you just stop the T. So that's a sort of an intermediary step, and sometimes it'll come out that way as well. Mountain, mountain, mountain. 3 ways, all are perfectly fine. None is informal. None is informal. See, that was wrong. None are informal. I'm pretty sure in 200 years, R is going to disappear. We're just going to say is for everything. Anyway, so none are informal. They're all just standard variations of how, like, mountain sounds fully enunciated. Mountain would be like a little less enunciated. We're still keeping the I, we're just stopping the T. By default, a stop T is not pushed out, so it's less enunciated on that scale. And then mountain would be sort of the least enunciated way, but that's also the most common way generally in normal speed speech. So there's not just one answer. Okay, that's the point. More than one thing can often apply. And I know that can kind of suck and make things seem a lot more complicated. But my job here is not just to teach you English, it's to teach you how people speak, how they actually speak. That is my big main emphasis. I'm not always here to teach you what is absolutely grammatically correct. I'm not always here to tell you the ideal pronunciation of words. I'm here to tell you the full reality of how American speech actually works in real life. Okay, so it's a lot of information. That's the truth. I heard that people from, a little typo there, from California tend to open, okay, open their mouth more, word order there, open their mouth more and change the I for the E. Yes, so it's not just California. That's I forget the exact term, but in Western American English, we have a thing where e, and well, not a, but e, and e can come out slightly more open. They don't shift into the next sound. They can kind of start sounding a little bit like the next sound because they're getting close to the borderline there. And maybe sometimes in some words, people will actually shift it down into the next sound. That is not something that is required. That is not like a standard thing where all Western Americans like always shift this sound down to that sound, down to that sound. It's just something that incidentally can happen sometimes. You'll notice it in my speech if you pay attention, but I still think more often than not, Western American speakers do keep it where it's supposed to be. It's just we have a tendency to maybe kind of drop these first 3 front vowels minus a, the 4th one, to drop it down a little bit because maybe we get a little lazy or something. It's something that exists that you don't have to pay attention to. What tenses native speakers actually use? We use all the tenses. Yeah, native speakers. There's a S there. But yeah, we use all the tenses. All the tenses exist. Now, some tenses are used more than others, like the future perfect. I will have done it. You need something very specific to use it, right? That all the tenses have a purpose, and some tenses, like the simple present, have more than one use. Like you can use the simple present to talk about something general. You can talk about use the simple present to talk about a habit. So something general, I don't know, the sun is big. A habit, I wake up every morning at 8 o'clock. Okay, it's a habit. It's still generally true, but because it's a habit. You can use it to you can use the I think it's called the narrative present, where we tell a story in the past using the present tense. It makes it sound more lively and engaging. So I could say, so yesterday I'm walking down the street, which it could also be the continuous. It doesn't have to just be the simple present. But yesterday I'm walking down the street and this guy walks up to me and punches me in the face. See, it sounds more active, more like you can actually see it because it's present tense. If I say yesterday I was walking down the street and this guy walked up to me and punched me in the face. Still, right, you can imagine that, but it feels a little bit different if it's in the past tense versus in the present tense, right? It feels a little more active in the present tense. So some tenses have multiple uses, which makes it a little complicated. But every tense has a purpose. So like the future perfect, that purpose for the future perfect doesn't happen all that much. And so we don't use it that much. You won't hear it as much. And then there are cases like in American English, for example, with the past perfect, if we need to make things clear about which action happened first because the context isn't clear, then we'll use the past perfect, definitely. And there's nothing that says we can't use it even if the context is clear, but more often than not, what Americans do is, if the context is clear, which action happened first, like I went to the store before you arrived. So I could say I had gone to the store before you arrived. That would be the past perfect and then the simple past, right? What you're taught in the grammar books. But if you say I went to the store before you arrived, in American English, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like it's very clear. I went to the store before you arrived. Before makes it clear, right? So in cases like that, Americans tend to like to use just simple past instead of past perfect, simple past. And so you might notice the past perfect a lot less, and hence you might ask, do they even use the past perfect? So maybe that's where that's coming from. But we use all the tenses. It's just there are certain reasons why we might not use certain ones very often. Either because we don't need to express that particular thing very often, or because we tend to change it into something else more often than not, like the past perfect into the past simple. So yeah, I follow Accent Hub too. By the way, he started a series on R-colored vowels as of late. Yeah, I don't like follow him necessarily. I've seen quite a bit of his videos, but and he'll pop up from time to time. I'm like, ooh, that looks interesting, so I'll watch it. But I don't like, I don't think I'm even really subscribed. I might be, but I don't like be like, oh, hey, he has a new episode out, like anything like that. But yeah, it's a really good channel. It might be interesting to see what he says about the R-colored vowels, but I don't know. I'm at a point where I've been speaking English and trying to get into the standard American accent for almost 6 years now. Okay. I just want to go out of my way to learn the Southern accent now. Okay. I just want to bring the level of my accent up. Yeah, because most Americans can usually shift into something that sounds like a Southern accent, even if maybe it's not like an actual Southern accent. Drop your and say only n. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, it is more complicated than that. So when I go into a Southern accent, I actually tend to kind of mix the Southern accents. Like right now, I kind of sound maybe more like I'm from, I guess, the Louisiana area, or I should say the Louisiana area. So sometimes I'll sort of sound like I'm from a different part of the South, and it'll kind of mix and blend. I don't like have a specific Southern accent, but it's pretty easy for Americans to imitate something like that. And there's that what we call the Southern drawl, and And there are different aspects to that. I'm not an expert on it, but one of the key things to sounding more like a Southerner is to sort of elongate your vowels a little bit. It's not like you're trying to draw every sound out or something like that, but or like make them, you know, make your speech longer. Like that's not the point. You want to sort of maybe just take a little bit more time on the vowels, just a tiny bit more time. And there's certain shifts that happen depending on the exact Southern accent. So for example, I'm going to try to talk with sort of a normal speed here. Notice I said spade, 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 spade. I'm making a diphthong. Spade. I'm not saying speed, spade. And probably not all Southerners do that, but I know some do. Notice I even said some, not some do, some do. Okay. So there's this weird sort of little shifting, like it feels in my mouth like, I mean, there's some extra little weird diphthongs that kind of get in here and there. And it feels sort of like the mouth is a little more rounded, not in terms of the lips or anything, although there might be some weird lip action going on, but like inside my mouth, my tongue just feels kind of like it's a little more like flowing and rounded in a way. Like I'm kind of trying to talk with a bowl in my mouth, like there, or a ball, not a bowl, a ball with a ball in my mouth. Like here I am talking with a ball in my mouth or something inside here, and it's kind of hard to talk. Kind of like that in a way. Notice I said talk instead of talk. So I'll actually add the lips there. Talk. What you talking about? Talking. He's talking crazy. Crazy. Almost sounds Australian. He's talking crazy. Okay. So maybe get a little bit of like a hint of Australian in there. That might help. I mean, I kind of think Australian is like a Southern accent, like say like there's like the American South and like the rest of the United States. And if in an abstract, indirect way, it's almost like the Australian dialect is like a Southern version of British English. That's kind of how it seems to me. And it's really funny because country music, which is mostly big in the South, in the United States, country music is actually, I mean, I don't know how big it is, but I know there's a lot of people who like country music. And one of the biggest country music stars here in the United States is from Australia. And when you listen to him speak, he sounds Australian, but when you listen to him sing, he doesn't sound Australian. So it kind of like matches. It's a weird thing. So don't try to sound Australian, because Australian does not sound like Southern, like the Southern accent in the United States. But I think there are sort of some elements to that. Some similarities. So I guess that's what I would say. Yeah. You answered my question about the merger unknowingly. Oh, you're welcome. All literatures have a common focus: to reveal the essential reality of life, to discover the ultimate truth, and to embrace the unity of the human spirit. Have a common focus doesn't make sense here. Should it not be in the plural form? Okay. Well, I'm kind of confused by all literatures. I would say all literature has. But I'm pretty sure that can be used in the plural. So all literatures have a common focus. But it is in the plural form. Because if you're saying all literatures they have, that's plural. Has is the singular form. If you say all literature has, that's the singular. So I'm not sure. Or are you asking because instead of have a common focus, you're thinking it should be have common focuses? I guess that would be the question. I meant it should be in the plural. Well, yeah, that's the only way that this makes sense. So I'm going to assume that's what you mean. But no, I mean, that would still be grammatically correct, but that's saying something slightly different. That would mean that the exact focus of all the literatures might not be exactly the same. There are different focuses, like this literature focuses on that, this literature focuses on that. But they have common focuses, meaning that not like one big common focus that they all share, but like, okay, so this one have a common focus, and then this one have a common focus, and maybe, like this one and this one might have also a common focus. And so it's not saying like all of them have one common focus. It's saying that there are multiple focuses that are shared among different literatures. So it's saying something slightly different. Yeah. Anyway, is the T in stop similar or the same to the T in after? Okay, good question. I still want to make a specific. I have a in my list. I'm going to make a specific lesson about this. I don't know if I'm going to make it a short or not. I think my shorts kind of get lost because like I'm pretty sure I have a playlist somewhere for my shorts, but I don't think people like see them, right? Because they tend to get recommended. There's so many shorts and stuff, and it's like when I put one out, yeah, it gets noticed. But then I don't know if you guys find like my old shorts. So if I have like a solid lesson for it, I think it'll be found more easily. But anyway, the T in stop and the T in after in this case, it's basically the same. Yes, but what is actually going on there? So if I say stop, 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 after, stop, after. There's a couple things going on here. Number one, the T in stop should be a T, but because of the S, it's making it sound kind of like a D. And so the way that I teach this now is just say it as a light D, like a weak D. And it's going to sound perfectly fine. Stop, stop, instead of stop, 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 stop. Perfectly fine, no problem, doesn't matter. In after, the reason why this, you can sort of hear more of that D sound instead of a T sound because the F does the same thing to the T. We don't say after, after, after. And you could kind of push out a bit of a T there if you're really clearly enunciating, but it's probably gonna be more of a weak D. The reason why it sounds a little bit different than the T in stop is because of the after it. Because we're going after, so we're trying to like pull back into that really quick, and it subtly affects the after, stop, 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 after. It might subtly affect the exact placement. We might put it a little bit farther back, but also in stop we're going stop, stop. So it's a clear release. Where with after, we actually, even if we start in the same position, we start to pull it this way, and so we're not like releasing and going into the next sound like stop. We're going after, and it also kind of wants to flap because usually it'll flap into but the sound before it is not a vowel, so it can't flap. So anyway, yeah, it's kind of weird. There's technically a small difference, but if you say both of these T's as a weak D, they should sound fine, perfectly fine. That's the main point. Mind blown for Shun Shun. Okay, we're at 142. I got about 45 minutes left. In my first question, I meant that I've heard native speakers say we was and she don't. I just want to know how common it is to talk that way and if it's also being used by non-African Americans as well. Okay, so good. So this is a good point of clarification. So we was is broken grammar. It sounds very informal. She don't, same thing. This is in that Ebonics or African American vernacular, which again in itself is fine. I think some of the grammar changes are very interesting. Especially how be often isn't even conjugated, like we be walking. Like I mean, from the perspective of a standard general American speaker, it sounds broken, but they've done studies where they show that like kids that grow up with this sort of African American vernacular, obviously they're also exposed to the general standard American speech. And so they've actually done studies where they show that they acquire both grammars. It's actually an acquired grammatical structure in this African American vernacular or Ebonics or whatever. It's not just like they're speaking wrong. It's an acquired grammar. Similarly to if you were exposed to English and Spanish as a baby, you would acquire both. This very similar thing happens here, and it's so fascinating. But to the ears of a standard general American speaker from most parts of the country, if you say we was or she don't, it's going to sound, best case scenario, very informal. and uneducated. Worst case scenario, it's just going to sound like broken grammar, and just like it's probably going to make some people, not all people, but it's going to make some people look down on you, like, oh, this person can't even speak, because some people have that attitude, and whatever. So especially if you're a non-native, like if which again, right, it's African American vernacular. So if you say you have the skin color and stuff, like you look African or whatever, and you're speaking that way, it's probably not going to stand out. But if you have like a lighter skin, like say you're from Mexico or something, and you're speaking that way, which I think they're kind of adapting it to a little bit. The presence of hip hop and rap on the global stage, obviously American hip hop is like everywhere, right? And it's causing a lot of non-native speakers to adopt certain speech habits that are actually, to most Americans, will sound informal or uneducated. And again, it is okay in itself. I'm not saying don't talk that way. If you want to talk that way, fine. But that's the perception that most Americans will have if you speak that way. So if you don't look African American, then most people are probably just going to think you're really uneducated. I guess, which is not fair, but that would be the perception that most people would have. So, Shun Shun, thank you. You're welcome. His magical cards just arrived. Yes, that was a while ago. Wow, am I that far behind? And I guess they are magical. Yes. He's gone. Let's take over the stream. Yeah, that was a while ago. You guys didn't even take over the stream. What the heck? Come on. You just said me and somebody from Chicago are generally okay. And I thought the correct way to say it was somebody from Chicago and I are generally, yeah, no, you're correct. This is real speech, guys. Okay. This is one of those rules that, again, is changing. If you ask the grammar police, they will say, oh, wow, this is an English teacher, and he actually said that. Like, wow, that's like, how does he even have a job? But I speak like a person. Okay. There are, as I've mentioned before, there's always, in any language, there are always certain grammar points that are in the process of change. Because otherwise, right, modern English would not have come from Middle English, would not have come from Old English, would not have come from, Proto-Germanic, would not have come from Proto-Indo-European, all the way back to whatever the original language was, right? If there's one original language, it never would have changed, right? We would still be speaking the same language after thousands of years. So words change over time. Grammar very slowly changes over time. It usually takes, at least a few hundred years or so for a grammar point to change. This is one of those points, okay? Technically, yes, according to proper grammar, you are supposed to put yourself after whoever you mention. So somebody from Chicago in this case, or if it's you, I say you and I, right? And you're supposed to use I, which is the subject pronoun, because we're talking about the subject. You and I like it, just like I like it, you and I like it. So it's supposed to be I because it's the subject. Okay, that all makes sense. That's fine. And it probably would sound a bit better to say it that way. And sometimes it does come out that way, and I will say it that way. But saying me and you like it, or you and me like it, right? It's wrong, but it's something that has been changing slowly over the last however many years. And it's becoming a very normal way for most people to speak. So if you want to be safe, just always use the correct way, right? You and I. Or just only use it in a formal situation, right? Because in a formal situation, I would probably be more likely to use it that way as well, although it's not guaranteed. So again, context, right? We know there's formal situations, informal situations. So definitely in an everyday situation, saying me and somebody from Chicago, or me and you and me, it sounds fine. Like nobody cares for the most part. Like nobody cares. If you're a grammar police and you really care about, proper grammar, and you don't understand that things change over time, and you have, as I said before, you have a stick up your ass, then yeah, it's going to sound really bad to you, and you're going to look down on me for speaking that way, and that's your problem, not mine. So anyway, again, I'm here to give you guys real speech. And I want to tell you guys, I'm not just trying to say, oh, hey, this is street speech, like you should speak like this. I'm saying, okay, this might sound more informal, or this is something that's changing, or whatever. So I try to give you the full picture, but I speak like a real person. I speak like the average, normal, real person. And I think that's part of what sets me apart from a lot of other channels where they try to be very ideal and proper, and, oh, this is how this is supposed to be pronounced, and this is how this grammar is supposed to work. And I know some teachers will sometimes tell you guys, oh yeah, I mean, you can say that informally and that's fine. Like there's certain things that are like standard informal or whatever. But as much as possible, I try to give you the whole picture. So if you catch things like that and you're like, hey, isn't this wrong? That's good that you noticed. I'm really glad that you noticed. But there's a reason why I ended up breaking the rule, right? Okay. Bro, you're probably the best teacher I need. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. You appreciate me. I appreciate you. Awesome. Regarding the could you just look up the video Space Station Live ISS off the Earth for the 2014 research highlights? That's a mouthful. And go to 2414 where a woman says it. Just want to know how it sounds to you. Okay, fine. I will do this just for you, David. Let's see. Okay, 2414. Oh, I have my headphones on. Yeah. Don't want no copyright strikes from stupid YouTube broken system. I was gonna say stupid people, so I should say stupid YouTube's broken system. 2414. 24. Okay, we're almost there. Let's see. Okay, so you are correct, David, that she does have a little bit of rounding, but I don't know if you noticed it. I assume not. She has a subtle Southern accent. Very subtle. I would actually probably put her from somewhere in the Midwest, where the accent kind of starts to sound a little Southern a bit, with some speakers, not all speakers. Maybe around like Southern Missouri, somewhere in there. But yeah, she does have a very, very subtle Southern accent, and that's probably why. Because if I were to do a Southern accent and say "aw," I'd say "aw," something like that, like "oh man, oh that's so nice, oh." Yeah, and she has just a little bit of that. Anyway, on the same boat. You mean in the same boat? I know in and on are horrible. There's a trick, right? Usually, right, you're on a ship because a ship is large enough, right? And it's a platform meant to carry many things and or people. But a boat is like a car. A boat is like a car. So technically, yes, you are on top of the boat, right? You're not on top of the car, you're inside the car. Makes sense. But for a boat is smaller. It's not meant to transport many things or people. It's meant to transport 1, 2, just like maybe a small group of people. You can only fit so much onto a small little boat. Right. And so notice I said onto a small little boat because I'm thinking of it as like putting it on top of the boat. Sometimes, again, depending on exactly how we're talking, it can shift. But usually we use in because even though it doesn't have walls, it's like a little container that you are in instead of a platform that you are on, because the platform carries many people or things, but it's like an individual personalized vehicle, right? Like a car. So you're in the same boat. I know it's weird. It's weird. It sucks. It's horrible. I know, but that's what it is. I think it's because you say CH sounds. You flare your lips and make your tongue tip curl down between or behind your under teeth. Sure. Yeah, if you do that, you'll probably get a bit of an R sound. Good point, Gabriel. Why would you delete it? Oh wait, no, not Full Moon, not Gabriel. Full Moon Dweller. I looked at the wrong person. I was like, what? Yes, very good point, Full Moon Dweller. because I mean, at the same time, like I don't know exactly what John is doing inside his mouth. Like I'm kind of going based off of what was stated. But if you've had a similar problem, I'm very glad that you mentioned that. And make extra space for eh and sound like ah, you know. So like cha, 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 not like cha, 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 yeah. It's all about tongue control, mouth control, making sure you're sliding into the right position or whatever it is. Shun shun, something, message retracted. For ah, yes, my AH, good. See, at this point, I'm like not even sure because some people are using ah the way other teachers do and it's referring to the unmerged ah, and then it's like just use my system, make it easy. But yeah, so ah for ah, does the tip of your tongue press against the back of your bottom teeth? Ah, 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 ah. Very commonly, it probably does. It doesn't absolutely have to, but I would say yes. And I wouldn't necessarily say press against because that sounds like there's some sort of like force there. And I mean, maybe you could get a little bit of pressure, but you're not trying to like push your tongue like into your teeth. Like no, that's yeah. But I mean, it could definitely touch. Yes, that's fine. Oh my God, I just got confused with something. When you say, should it not be right? What you really mean is if should be what? It should be right. Okay, so should it not be right? It should be right. I don't know. What did I say? I don't remember saying that. Like, are you saying like when you say as in like I said it specifically, or are you using general you, like somebody says something like that? So if I said it, remind me what I was talking about because I don't remember. Yeah. Context is important there. How do you pronounce? Okay, so the first word, there's more than one pronunciation. It doesn't matter. You can say caramel. You can say caramel. You can say caramel with a little after the or after the R. A lot of people will either say caramel or caramel. You can say caramel or not caramel, caramel. So there's a number of pronunciations. I think I usually use caramel. But sometimes I might say caramel apple. No, I usually use caramel. Yeah, that sounds better. See, they both sound good to me, so it really doesn't matter. I usually use caramel, yeah, without the little after the just caramel. The second one, caramelize, you can use the exact same thing, just add eyes to it. Caramelize, it's basically the same variations. Maybe there's more than that, but those are what come to my mind. So I would just make it easy, say caramelize, easy. Although if it's easier for you to say care than car, then I guess maybe you use that one. But obviously those are two sounds that exist in other words and you should be able to pronounce both of them. So whatever, just pick one. Touching the teeth about a sound. Thanks. Okay. Do an unboxing. I totally could. I kind of want to open it, just like take a peek, but like you guys don't even know, like there's my floor back here and I'm just going to like make some space and like there's just going to be cards all over the floor because I have to sort them out into all the different sets and stuff. And it's going to be so much fun. Anyway, but when you inverse the first sentence from its question form, it rephrases as it should not be right, which is not what we mean. It's the logic here. Okay, so going back. Okay. It should not. So should it not be right? Wait, should it? Okay, so the first one was a question. See, because you didn't put a question mark, so I didn't understand it was a question. Because I mean, you could put the not there and it not be a question, like I just said, and it not be a question. Okay, hold on. Because if it's a question, if it's a negative question, like should it not be right? Should it not be right? Yeah, that would be a negative question. When you inverse, what did I say? Invert with a T. When you invert the first sentence from its question form, it phrases as it should not be right. So yes, the statement, it should not be right. Question, should it not be right? Because remember, what happens with the question is all we do is we invert the subject and the verb or helping verb. If there's a helping verb, the helping verb will switch with the subject. If there is no helping verb, actually, no, technically that's not right. That's part of the illusion of the simple present. The helping verb will always invert. In a basic statement, like I like it, it doesn't seem like there's a helping verb, but the do is there, which is why we say, do you like it? The do appears out of nowhere because we just don't say the do. So yeah, there's whether the helping verb is normally there in the basic statement or not, there's always a helping verb there of some form, can, should, have, did, or do, whatever. And it's going to invert with the subject. Yeah. For the question. So yes. I'm not sure what you mean by what's logic though, because are we just talking about inverting the word order for the question? Like I don't know. What you said, like what you really mean is it should be right. And I'm all mixed up here. Okay. Should it not be right? Another way to say that would be, shouldn't it be right? Because you can, if you can track the negative in the question, then the not is going to move and connect because it would be shouldn't is a contraction. So shouldn't it be right? That would be the same as should it not be right. Now we might uncontract to emphasize. That's usually why we uncontract. And so, and that might be a contextual thing depending on exactly what we're talking about as well. But shouldn't it be right? It should not be right. It shouldn't be right. Yeah. So shouldn't it be right? It shouldn't be right. No. So those are opposite meanings. If I ask the question, shouldn't it be right or should it not be right? I'm asking, like I'm confirming. So like, I think it should be right, but you seem to think that it should be wrong. And I'm like, okay, so wait, just to clarify, because I could just ask like, it should be right, correct? Or I could make it a negative question and say, shouldn't it be right? Because one of the functions of negative questions is to clarify and to make sure the other person agrees. But if I say the statement, it shouldn't be right, then I'm saying that I think that it should not be right, not that I think it should be right. And I'm clarifying that you think the same thing, but that I myself think that it should not be right. So those would be opposite. Okay, that actually makes sense. Are there any pronunciation features in Canadian English? There are. I'm not an expert on Canadian English either. There's a bit of a range. Some Canadians will change out to oo. This is saying about, they'll say a boot. Very distinctive Canadian feature, but not all Canadians have that. Most Canadians, as far as I'm aware, maybe it's not most, but many Canadians at least, I would probably say most Canadians, sound almost exactly like me. In fact, they would be considered another neutral accent of American English. There are some linguists who want to put Canadian English, Canadian English, under the umbrella of general American because it's so similar. So yeah, and there's quite a few Canadian YouTubers that I didn't even know they were Canadian until they specifically said so. Now I'm a little bit more in tune to those things, and so I'll kind of pick up little subtleties. But if I'm not really like trying to listen to that, it's just like there's this person speaking, I may never notice if they don't specifically say it. So yeah. Full Moon Dweller, your explanation and Sensei's details should fix this problem, I believe. Okay, good, yes. Splendid. I love to see this community growing up. Growing, not growing up. Technically growing up could work, but growing would be something expands, it grows, right? It becomes bigger. Where growing up is used for like children as they move towards adulthood. So technically it could work here, but we'd probably say growing. Anyway, how to pronounce vengeance like that. And it's basically the same as revenge. I see revenge more often. Vengeance is more common in Portuguese, though. Oh God, see, my Portuguese pronunciation, I don't remember all the details of how to pronounce things. I want to say like vingança, Vingança. Translates as revenge. Vingança. I don't know. Maybe it might even be vinganza, but I think it's supposed to be a g. Anyway. Yeah, so vengeance. So it's a j, it's not a g, right? Vengeance. Stress is on the first syllable. Second syllable is, it could either be an e or an a, vengeance. It could even be an e, vengeance. Not a clear e, that's kind of weird. Let's see if I make sure it's not stressed. Vengeance. Yeah, some people might say it with a bit of an e. But anyway, I just reduce it to a schwa to make it easy. Vengeance. Is it the same as revenge? Yes. They are synonyms. Like I want to get. Usually, we'll use possessive with vengeance, like my vengeance, and you could do that with revenge too. I want to get my vengeance. I want to get my revenge. But revenge might be used more commonly without it. Like I want to get revenge. So they're synonyms. The reason why you see revenge more often is because it's the more common one. Right. There are quite a few words in English that came from French or Latin, right? Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, I got confused by the, distracted by that other point. Quite a few words from French or Latin, which is like 60 to 65% of English vocabulary in modern English. But there's quite a few of those words that some of them are just the words we have. Like they're the same as the French or Latin, but they're just the word, like ambulance, ambulancia in Spanish, right? That's just the word we use, and it's similar in French and Portuguese and whatever. But there's some words where, because the history of English, really quick little thing here. I think it's fascinating. I don't know. Some of you guys might be bored by this, but during the time of Middle English, which was quite a while ago, think like around the year 1000. So this is quite a while ago. During Middle English, due to politics and stuff, there was this thingy where like the King of France had a claim to England and this and that and whatever and blah, blah, blah. The point is that there was the English that was spoken, which was Germanic, right? There was some influence from Latin because obviously Latin is very old. But at that time, it was very Germanic, right? Like the grammar, the vocabulary, et cetera, it was probably a lot closer to German. And due to this whole politics and the French influence, like the court was speaking French, where the average people were speaking English. And over time, what happened is a lot of these French words started getting into the regular speech of English speakers. And eventually we evolved into early modern English, which was Shakespeare. Shakespeare still spoke modern English. I speak modern English. Obviously, Shakespeare speaks very differently than me, but we're still both under modern English. So you can see how much things can change. So Middle English was quite different. Anyway, lots of French influence. So we have cases where, like, for example, there's cow and there's beef. Cow is the Germanic word that we had to refer to the animal. Beef is like related to the French word. And we use that for cow as food, which as a vegan, I don't like that idea, but it's an easy example. So we have these two different words to refer to the state of the animal. Is it living or is it food? And that's because of this split. We also have hard and difficult, which in this particular case, they're both common words. Hard is of Germanic origin. Difficult came from the French, right? But then there are some times where the French or Latin origin word will sound formal. It will sound fancy. Or even if it doesn't quite sound formal or fancy, it's just not as commonly used as another variation that may also have come from French, who knows. But we tend to use one more than the other. So there's sort of a range of like, okay, hard and difficult are both common, up to like, okay, revenge and vengeance mean the same thing, but we tend to use one over the other. And then Okay, spectacles. I don't know if that comes from French. I'm just trying to think of an example here, but spectacles means glasses, right? Almost nobody uses the word spectacles. Like, oh, where are my spectacles? No, we use the word glasses. So spectacles sounds like sort of a dated, fancy, formal sounding word. And I think that exists in, all languages. So it's just in English, a lot of those words will have come from French or Latin because of the history. Anyway, and that helps an English speaker speaking other Romance languages, because if we don't know the word, we can guess, right? We can think of, like compassion. Maybe it's compasión in Spanish, right? Or in Portuguese, because I know the sion usually changes to something like são, like, or maybe it's not sion. Yeah, like nación, I think it's nação or something like that. Maybe I'm confusing things, but so I would think, okay, so then compasión would be compassão or something like that. So if I know how the certain things change between Spanish and Portuguese, I already know what I would say in Spanish. Or if I'm learning Spanish, I take a guess based off of what sounds, a little more fancier or like a less common word. Guess that in Spanish. Oh, it works. Oh yeah, I changed this ending into Portuguese, and now I also have the Portuguese version. So it makes it really, really easy. Somebody coming from a Romance language into English, it's not necessarily as easy. You can usually guess, but the pronunciation is probably going to be very different. And we also have the Germanic words, right? And so you may not be able to guess it at all because you just don't have a word that would match in English. So works for us, right? The French influence really helps us. It gave us a really big boost to learn Romance languages and Germanic languages. But if you come from one or the other, it's not as easy. You're the best teacher in the YouTube community. Well, thank you, Shinjin. How do you pronounce corrupt practices like that? I feel I always have to say that. There are 3 consonants in a row, and I dropped the middle T. There are still 2 Ps. Okay, yeah, so if you fully enunciate, you would say the T, corrupt practices, right? That's fine. But normally we are going to drop that T, yes. Corrupt practices. How this works then is what happens if we have a P and a P between 2 words. Okay, this is a standard linking rule for stop sounds. So if I say stop and punching, like stop punching me, right? The standard thing to do is you stop the first one and then you push out the second one. Stop punching, stop punching. That's it. Now, if you're speaking really quickly, you don't even have to stop the first one. You can just drop it. Stop punching, stop punching, stop punching, stop punching. But in normal speed speech, we want to hear a stop before we push it out. Stop punching me. Okay, so same thing, corrupt practices, corrupt practices. So very easy. A common foci. Oh, I see what you're saying. See, that went right over my head. There are some words that the plural versions are technically correct, but most people either don't know what they are or don't care. Like technically, I'm pretty sure, what is it? Like there's like cactus and cacti. I'm really not sure which one is the plural because I don't care enough. I'm pretty sure cacti is plural. I don't really know. But what we'll usually do, right, because this is another thing that's changing, or that can change for these like really weird irregular plurals. So what we'll say, notice I was talking about there's a common focus or common focuses, right? I just added the ES because that's the thing we usually do. Most people would never say foci. Like if you're very educated and you want to sound like you're educated, you'll probably use that. Or if you just want to be technically accurate to how the language should be, then you might choose to do that. But most people would say focuses. With cactus, I would say 1 cactus, 2 cactuses. So a lot of these irregular plurals that are less common, like the I at the end, are, I think, in transition to just changing to the ES ending. So yeah. Okay. Are you there? Do you know makeup guru John McLean is excellent? Okay, whatever. He makes me feel like a peasant when he talks. That's funny. What are we at? We're at 2:14. We got about 15 minutes left, guys. I don't know if I can get to everybody. I'm going to try to sort of speed up a bit here. But keep in mind, 15 more minutes. So if we can cut the comments down, that would be nice. Just so I can get to everybody. On the Southern accent thing, I think Alabama accent is a good place to start. There's a YouTube video on, okay, blah, blah, blah. Thanks for explaining. It really helped. Perfect. Thank you. I'll take a look. Good. Thank you so much for the tips. Really appreciate it. No problem. Wow, didn't know of John McLean. Okay, I'm just gonna skip that. Do you kind of slide? Slide would probably be a good word. The tongue tip. Oh wait, did we have another super chat here? I didn't even notice that. Was I gone? So in making oh, I see. Yeah. Maybe I was just so focused I didn't even notice the super chat. Apologies if that's the case. Yeah. Okay. So when making I'm really confused by that. Do you kind of slide the tongue tip on the top of the bottom teeth and the bottom? I don't understand the question because I don't know. Like it is a sound and the letter E is just a letter. Like you mean like would it be like the schwa? Like it's supposed to be upside down? Like I don't understand the question. You have to clarify. Okay, blah blah blah. Separate conversation. It as in lid. Okay. As in check. Okay, see, because the way that I would transcribe if you just write E, like that's just a letter. The way that I would transcribe the third vowel would be EH. So because you wrote IH, and so I was like, okay, that's But then if you write just the letter E, that's what confused me. I was like, what? Okay. So then going back. Okay, so it's for both of those sounds. So when making or so you just put a comma. That also wasn't helpful. So or I think that's what you mean. Do you kind of slide the tongue tip on the top of the teeth and the bottom of the teeth? Well, no. So there is no vowel that touches the top teeth. If you're ever making a vowel and you touch your top teeth, you are not producing the sound correctly. Okay, there is no vowel that touches the top teeth. The bottom teeth, now obviously I'm talking about the front. The sides, yes, the sides of your tongue can be touching and doing different things with the sides of your teeth. That's separate. So maybe you mean like here, but since you're saying slide, I imagine you're talking about like going into the position maybe or something. Now, let's say if you go from ch to like we're talking about, right, or L to so le. The L can touch the teeth, but as soon as you release that L sound, you're not on the teeth anymore. You're that you shouldn't be like le. No, like wrong. Ch into you shouldn't be saying like how would you even do that? Yeah, like it's not even physically possible. So I don't know. Like no, don't touch your top teeth with any vowel sound. Period. The bottom teeth in the front, possible, especially for those front vowels, but not required. Possible, but not required. Yeah. So you can have just completely floating. I'm not touching top or bottom teeth in the front at all. Or you can use the anchor technique. So it doesn't particularly matter if you're touching the bottom teeth. Gabriel, okay, blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah, okay, I forgot that. Can you cut the diphthong of A and I don't and drop the D and don't? Oh. Yes. Yeah. So we will, especially for unstressed syllables or words like an I, we will commonly cut the diphthong to just so we'll cut off the I part. And that's just, it doesn't matter in this combination or just in general. Like I want, not I want, want. That's fine. With the dropping the D and don't, that can be a little trickier because obviously it's kind of an important part. But in especially faster speech, or if you're just kind of being really lazy, like, I don't like it. I don't. Yes, you can do that. That does exist. It sounds kind of unclear. Now there's a plane that's probably going to be quite loud. It does sound kind of unclear, and there's a subtle thing here. Just know that it's going to sound kind of lazy. If you're speaking really fast, like, I don't like it, then that's just like actually the standard thing. It just makes it faster to speak, to say that particular combination. I don't. We just drop the D, cut the diphthong. I don't like it. But in normal speed speech, it will sound lazier, sound a bit unclear. And some people might want you to speak up and enunciate a little bit more, but it does exist. Yes. It's a normal thing. Okay, good. I can skip a lot of these because this is a secondary conversation. Rock solid. In solid, the same as rock. Okay, so you're using the AH transcription, which I do not use for the sound, which I mean is okay, whatever. It's ah, so I would write AW. Okay, so it would be solid. You can probably stop that D. I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. And then rock would be rock. Yes, it's the same sound. Solid and rock. Again, I have the merger. So the AW is just ah. There's not ah and ah. It's just ah, rock solid, rock solid. My super chat is being unnoticed. Yeah, sorry. I got to it. I seriously didn't even notice it at all. It's just like it didn't exist. That's totally my fault. Blah, 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 blah. Good question. Second layer questions are great. Can you reduce the I diphthong to as in bat, like you do, or like you can in ow or no? No. It's because it's not ah. You wouldn't be reducing it. You'd be changing it. Because the start of the I diphthong is not ah. So you'd just be changing it to a completely different sound. Which I know that like when we reduce, like if I reduce to a schwa, I'm changing it to a different sound, but it's not the same. I guess, okay, to just make it simple, no, it wouldn't reduce into ah. You just cut off the I. That's all. So you just do the ah part. Ah. It's not ah. It's not I. No, it's I. And then you just say ah. Not ah. Us men don't like it when versus we men don't. Yeah. Is one of these incorrect? Which one is more common, and is one of them likely to get you arrested by the grammar police? I'm actually not completely sure. I'm pretty sure it should be we men, because we is the subject, right? So if you think about it grammatically, right, we're talking about, okay, we don't like it, men don't like it. Both of those are subjects. And then if you want to say we men, as in I am a man, and so I'm going to say we men, right? It's something we can do in English, then it should still be the subject pronoun. So it'd be we. But it is very common to say us men. And that sounds so perfectly fine and natural to me. I don't want to say it's wrong, but based off of just basic grammar and that we know us is not a subject pronoun, it has to be wrong. But again, it sounds so completely normal and natural. Both of them sound perfectly normal and natural. So this is something that would be in late stage transition, but sometimes a transition, I don't think I've really noticed many cases like this. Sometimes a transition happens where both of them, like now we just have like two ways to say the same thing. Like they both sound perfectly fine. Us men don't like it when that happens. We men don't like it when that happens. Yeah, both are fine. Pick one. If you want to be technically correct, use the subject pronoun we. But I would say it doesn't matter. Also, should men be between commas? No. If you do that, then say you have there's a group of men and you are talking to that group of men, and including yourself. So like you're the leader or something, right? And you're saying, we men, so not we men, as in like I am also a man, I'm part of the group of men in general, but I say we, talking about the group and myself, comma, men, addressing the group, this group of men. We men don't like it when women do blah, blah, blah. Okay. So it would be, if you put 2 commas and separate out men, you get a completely different thing. Now, technically, the resulting meaning would kind of come out the same, but you're not saying, if you put the commas, you're not saying men don't like it when, you're saying we, as in this group of people, including myself, who all are men, but not all men in general. Okay, so that would be the big difference there. David, welcome. 1 S before, wait, oh, sorry. 1. See, there's a comma there. I was like, what? S before TH, this thing, does the TH get canceled? If you're fully enunciating, you can push out the TH. This thing, perfectly fine. It will commonly come out like that. It's not a problem. However, it is much more common that, yes, the S before a TH, a voiceless TH specifically, if it's voices at work, this, that. No, if it's voices, it's probably not going to work. But if it's a voiceless TH, this thing. Again, if you're speaking more slowly, more enunciated, it's not going to work. If you're speaking normal or especially fast, yeah, this thing is really awesome. This thing. Notice I'm not even saying the TH in this. I'm doing like a really lazy, like light TH, like this thing is really awesome. This thing. Again, faster speech works a little bit differently, like really fast speech works a little differently. But yes, short answer is yes. Something else I wanted to say about that. Oh yeah, you can also do the dental T for that voiceless TH and thing. So you can say this thing. Yeah, this thing. That's also a very common thing. Any difference between written and ridden? I made a short about this, specifically these 2 words, because this was brought up in a live stream. I know the shorts probably aren't as searchable and whatever. So I don't know. Like, I don't even know why I bother making shorts. But yes, written and ridden. Apparently, as Finn pointed out several weeks ago, apparently there are native speakers who say these slightly differently. You don't have to. I say them exactly the same. Ridden and ridden. Don't worry about it. It's it's flap D, and then in. Ridden. Of course, you could also, now the fully enunciated versions are different. Okay. So, because remember the T, if it flaps, it becomes a flap D, and so they would sound the same. But if you fully enunciate, the first one would be ridden. Now we're not flapping anymore. We're doing a D. It's a weak D because it's at the start of an unstressed syllable. Ridden. I have never ridden a horse. Okay. Not the normal way to say it, but the fully enunciated way to say it. With written, notice T. Okay. If I'm fully enunciating, I'm going to push out that T, not as a D because it is a T, but when the T flaps, it becomes a D. So that's why they would sound the same again. So I have written several books. If I enunciated, it's a T, and they are different. You could also apply that T plus syllabic N, written. I've written several books. You can do that with ridden too. I've never ridden a horse. Ridden. There it's a little bit more of a nasal plosive, but it's functionally basically the same. Ridden. So yeah. Anyway, blah. I'm still so behind, guys. We have 2 minutes. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. I want to make sure I don't skip anything important. I have a poltergeist. Where is it? What happened? Where's this coming from? I wouldn't be surprised though. Some of the words or sounds have been bugging me so much. Let's help one another by throwing good questions like that. Yeah, good. Fish are friends, not food. Thank you. Yes, fish are friends, not food. It's a deal. What other sounds do you find difficult and uncomfortable? An octopi. Yeah, octopi. Or the octopuses, as we would say, incorrectly. Again, I don't even know if that's supposed to be the plural or the singular. I guess, given the context, that would be the plural version. Notice we don't say fishes, though. Not everything is changing. Fish is singular and plural. Men, we don't say manis, right? Like, not all of it. It's just usually the ones that end in I are changing. I want to make that clear. So I'd say it when they are in certain words like check and lid, and probably oo as in, okay, so as in wood. Keep in mind that's it's not oo, it's it sounds good, but probably not perfect. Okay. Also, maybe sometimes schwa sound, for example, when saying ava. Yeah, that's two schwas. Ava. How about you? My super chat is still being unnoticed. Well, if you sent another one, I got 2 super chats. Maybe you said that before I addressed the super chat. Sorry. In which case, I'm more behind than I thought. But hopefully you didn't send another super chat, because I definitely didn't get that. Maybe it didn't even pop up. Like, maybe it was like a glitch with YouTube. That could have happened. Before you end the live stream, please do unboxing. I'm nice. They're not magical cards. They're magic cards. It's a card game, Magic the Gathering. It's the oldest card game, created in the 90s. But I guess you could call them magical. Yes. I was also boycotted. I was planning on giving you some super chats, but my card only does debit. They don't take debit. That's stupid. So you don't need to touch any parts of your teeth when saying eh or eh. Well, not only do you not need, but for the top and the front, you shouldn't. But yes, correct. You don't need to touch. For me, it's and then and the vowel in wood as well, but especially when I'm speaking impromptu, I have okay. What makes matters worse is ridiculous variation when named speakers. Yeah, so, and that's why you kind of just pick something, right? You just pick something. If you like how something sounds, say it that way. But know that, it might be a dialectical thing. And if you're cool with that, then that's fine. That's why it's useful to have like 1 or 2 parents that you try to model specifically, because then you can filter out a lot of the noise. Thanks for everything. Bye, Daniela. I'm going to note my last question for the next live. Thanks for the live. Have a good day. Okay, no problem. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to finish this up here. Gabriel wants me to unbox, so since I'm about to do that right now anyway, I'll go ahead and open it for anybody who wants to stick around for a minute. How much does this weigh? I don't even know. This has to be at least like 10 pounds. Which of course pounds, right? You guys don't know that. Because I'm American. I'm great. Because we don't use the metric system because we're stupid. I has, notice, informal. I has a knife. Okay, that's informal, an intentional breaking of grammar. We do that to be playful. It should be I have a knife, but I was going to say I has a knife. Don't want to cut the cards. Be very careful. Ugh. Okay. Thank you for the live. It's been a blast. Have a good one. No problem. Thank you for coming. Completely agree on that. Thank you for the live, and have a great rest of the day. Will do. You don't want to see me open my cards, David? Ugh. Completely unrelated to English. Okay. Badoop. I said badoop. Open. Why is this stuck here? Doesn't make any sense. Open it with my bare hands or not. This is awkward and embarrassing. Can't even open a box. There we go. All right. Cool. Let's see here. The earth should have one official language and everyone should be bilingual. Wait. Oh, I see. I don't know. Should is a strong word. So, see, these are the cards. Yeah, awesome. Anybody tuning in at this point are like, is this an English channel or what? Like, what is going on? They're packed full of cards. So packed. See, this is Magic the Gathering. first trying to get these out. It's always a pain because you can't grab anything because they're so packed. Make some space here. Yeah, seeing a lot of the same set, same color. I really hope I don't get a bunch of duplicates. I always hate when that happens. You better brag about your cards to your roommates. Yeah, they don't care. I'm still watching. Tell us what your favorite card is. There are literally, like, there's probably a million different Magic cards. Because this game has been running since the 90s, and they come out with new sets, I think, every quarter. Like yearly quarter. I strongly insist. Okay. I guess that works, yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of really cool cards. I don't even play the game anymore. I used to play this a lot in like high school and college. And due to various things and long story that I will not go into, I lost my collection. And then a few years ago, I decided to kind of try to get back into it, not to play, but to like collect. I was actually going to start like a resale business for it, and that kind of fell through. But I kept, I started building up my own collection out of what I bought. So, and then that was several years ago. So I haven't bought any since then. And the other day I was just like, you know what? I want to buy some Magic cards. So I did. And here they are. And I actually have another box coming. I bought 2 boxes, but the other one's not going to be here till next week. In total, 7,000 cards, which is awesome. Ew, we got some rares. Yeah, rares are nice. Rares are nice. Anyway, who are you going to play the card game with? Nobody. I don't really play anymore. I just collect. And then maybe try to sell off whatever I don't want. There's so much, guys. So much. Yeah, you can see the stacks. Okay. So this box has 4,000 cards. And the other box has 3,000 cards, which I don't have yet. This card has a little bend in it. How dare you? It's okay. And my roommate's going to help me. I paid her to help me. But if I were to do this by myself for 4,000 cards, this would probably take me, God, I don't even know, like at least 8 hours to get through it. I used to spend a ridiculous amount of time doing stuff like this. It was like half of my high school. There's so many. I can sense the smell of brand new cards from here. Well, I smell like cards, that's for sure. I am very aware or very familiar with that smell. I know what cards smell like. So much. Just kind of taking a look at some of the sets as I go through. Get an idea of the range. I'm seeing lots from few sets, which is not cool. Lots of relatively newer sets. I'm hoping to get some older cards. Obviously, I'm not going to get anything super valuable, but Mirrodin. Oh, that's an old Mirrodin. That's a nice one. Is this old Mirrodin? Yeah, these are old Mirrodin. Sweet. These are like early 2000s. Back from my high school days. Cool. Yeah, these are going to start falling over. You can just see it just keeps growing. Are they brand new or did you buy them used? Sorry if you mentioned it already. No, I didn't mention that yet. Yeah, these are all used. The condition listed is mint, which would be basically new. It's just somebody opened a pack, so you can't call them completely new because they're not in a pack anymore. From mint to lightly played, and that seems to be an accurate description. So yeah, they're pretty much new. They don't have a lot of wear on them. I don't even know that set symbol. It's probably a newer one. And that's the other thing, because over the last few years, I think since the last time I bought cards, there's probably been like maybe 10 sets that have come out. And I don't have any of those cards. So it's kind of a win-win, because in these bulk boxes, like you hope for some older cards maybe, but obviously people are like trying to sell off their bulk of, things that they bought all the packs and took what they wanted and stuff, and then they have all this extra left over. And so it's kind of a nice way to like boost up your collection of some of the newer sets without actually buying the newer sets. But then of course you don't really get the rares and stuff from the newer sets, because those are usually separate. So I don't know. I just like going through cards. Like just going through all of these stacks and separating them out into all their sets. And then it gets worse than that, see, because I have binders that have, card sleeves and separated out by each set. So what I'm going to do is every card has this little set symbol right here. And then every set has a number, which you probably can't see that. That's very blurry. So this is 242 of 279 that are total in the set. So this number is specifically number 242 in the set. So I'm going to first separate all these cards. I still have a lot more in here. All these cards based on their set symbol. And then I'm going to take the pile of that set and I'm going to look at the numbers. So there's lots of this as I'm on the floor. And looking at the numbers and being like, okay, this number here, this number here, this number here. So it's just a lot of sorting. It's just the whole process is sorting everything out. And it's so much fun because I'm weird like that. And then once I have them sorted and organized, then I go to my binders and I basically go in order, and any card that I already have in the binder goes to a pile, and any card that I don't have in the binder goes in the binder. So it's a long process just to find the cards that I don't have and put them into a binder. All of that work just for that. And that is fine with me. Because since I'm weird, this is one way that I can help to relax and have some fun. And most people are like, yeah, you're freaking weird. I got so much Virgo energy from your explanation of all the neat sorting and organizing. See, that doesn't even make sense, because most of the time I hate sorting and organizing things. It's like my least favorite thing to do. I get bursts where I'm like, I should clean my room. I should organize some things. I should, whatever. But usually I don't like doing that. But when it comes to this, because this is something I'm collecting, and it's like going through all the stuff, and I don't know, I like it. So much energy. Power. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to go, guys. I'm going to get started on this, and then I actually have somewhere to go that I have to do some things, and then I have another place to go to do some things, and I'm really sad because I'm not going to get to sit here and finish this today. But that's okay. Sorting, that's a new word for me. Oh, well, there you go. See, context. Context. You learned a new word because I unboxed, that might be a new word. I unboxed some of these cards, and that's the best way to learn language, is context. So you're welcome. Very good. See, it still comes down to English. Doesn't matter what I'm talking about. You guys can learn stuff. All right. So thank you guys very much. And thanks for trying to cut down on the comments towards the end there so I could catch up. Yeah, next week, same time. We'll probably go about the same length until from like 11:30 to 2. And hope you all have a good rest of the week, and I'll see you next time. So, bye.